Over the last few months here on the channel, I've been exploring the ability to use AI to summarize and talk to your PDFs. We've looked at a bunch of different systems, and now in the last few weeks I've been looking at this new automation tool that's kind of come to the scene to give us a taste, I think, of what's to come in the next few years in the world of automation systems like Make, Zapier, and the rest. And it's called Respell. So yeah, let's take a look at what Respell can do with PDFs. If you haven't done so already, do subscribe to the channel now, and don't forget to click on that bell icon so that you don't miss any new uploads. My name is Alex, and without any further ado, let's get started. So in our typical fashion, let's take a look at our database. There's really nothing much to see here. We just have a bunch of attachments, a trigger, and a summary. We're not going to be testing anything crazy. I just want to see how Respell handles PDFs in general, whether it's a completely raster sort of type of PDF where it hasn't been OCR'd or anything like that, how it handles OCR'd PDFs. So in this case, I have done some testing, and there is one big limitation, but I think this is mainly due to the fact that Respell is just a very young startup. So you are limited to PDFs that are maximum 15 pages long, which is not ideal for a lot of use cases, but it is what it is. I have a few files here. This one in particular, the Dwola file, is like a completely rasterized PDF. As you can see, it's all grainy. There's no OCR happening whatsoever. I can't highlight anything. So it's a prime candidate for a hard type of PDF. Also, it's not exactly a document. It's more of a presentation. So that's an extra difficult document for AI to kind of understand. Yeah, let's see how it performs, and then we'll take a look at how to piece this whole thing together if you want to try this out. So process Respell, that should now run. We should get a little notification that it's running. And after a few seconds, it does take its time. It's not super quick. Sometimes it takes so much time that I'm wondering if something's broken, but there we go. Cool. So as you can see, it's a fairly good summary. So now that we've seen how this works, let's take a look at the automation that runs in the background. Okay, so in this case, although Respell is another automation platform kind of like Make, I honestly don't think that it's going to replace Make or Zapier anytime soon. More than anything, at the moment, it's almost like your special little ability to create an API call to another workflow. But I do think that in the future, it could upset the likes of Zapier and Make if they correct and enhance a few things. But at the moment, for that reason, we are using Make in conjunction with Respell. So we use Make to kind of trigger the process and update Airtable at the same time. So there's part 1 automation that sends data to Respell, and there is a part 2 automation that fetches data from Respell and adds it back to Airtable. And we're going to take a look at all three: part 1, Respell, and part 2. So part 1 essentially is exactly as you can imagine. We have a trigger. Let's talk about the trigger. There's an automation that is called fetch PDF summary. And yeah, that is a very simple thing to do. You just set up the trigger to say when the record matches conditions in the table of documents. When process Respell is checked, we send a script. This is our typical script that we use here on the channel to send data to Make. Looks like so. And yeah, all you have to do is just replace this webhook with the webhook that Make gives you here. Just copy this, paste it in, and you're golden. Don't forget to add your input variables. Make sure that the input variable is exactly like I've done it here. And don't forget to map your Airtable record ID by pressing the blue button and just pressing the Airtable record ID value down here. So yeah, and that's it. And then just press finish editing. Don't forget to turn this on. Then let's take a look at our Make scenario. So as soon as we have this trigger land, which is basically the record ID from Airtable, we fetch that record from Airtable, right? And just map module 1's record ID down into the get a record. Then we update that same record. I mean, technically I should be able to just use one of them, but it's okay. But then we just update that document with processing Respell summary so that the users basically know that, hey, something's going on, especially because Respell takes forever to produce a result. And finally, then we simply make a request to Respell. And the HTTP request looks like this. Very simple to do. And essentially you have a URL, which is this particular endpoint here, v1 run. Method is post. You need to include your authorization with a bearer, space, and your API key. And of course, the little raw JSON payload that you need to add is like this. Now, it's incredibly easy to piece this thing together. If you go to Respell after you've set up your spell, they're called spells here, not scenarios or zaps or anything like that. When you press publish and you press update, that will give you the correct API call that you need to set up. I'm a fan of curl, so in this curl command gives you everything that you need. You have the endpoint that you need to hit. You have the headers that you need to include, including your bearer token combo, and then of course the data. So all you have to do is just basically copy this, paste it in down here, and just map accordingly. In this case, I just have to add my Airtable record ID and then my PDF link, PDF attachment, URL, and that's it. I'm ready to go. Press OK, and that's perfect. Now, let's talk about the Respell scenario, or spell, rather. So Respell kind of works like Make and Zapier in the sense that you have a start and you have an end. But the beauty of it is that you can slipstream certain modules as you go along. So for instance, in here, we begin with a PDF link. That's an actual input of the link that we get from Airtable. Then we use the file to text module from Respell itself. It's located, I think, here in the data section. File to text reads the text in PDFs and images. Great. So from there, we combine that text to create our prompt for Claude 2, which is really nice. Claude's API is not publicly available yet. You have to be invited to use it. But if you're using Respell, voila, you can now use Claude. 100,000 token limit. It's impressive. So you can feed it a lot of data. And it's also super cheap per 1K tokens. So that's great. But yeah, in this case, to create my prompt, I'm using the combined text module, which essentially, if I expand it, I'm just telling it, please summarize the text below to the best of your ability, the text, and then the PDF data that comes from my combined text module from my input. And then I also have another input, but this time it's a fixed value input, which basically tells Claude what it is. You are a savant copywriter with years of experience in analyzing long text and providing effective summaries. Simple. Then we feed all of that to Claude, and that sort of approach is really, I think, that what makes Respell a little bit different to what we're used to, especially with Make and Zapier, I believe. So this is a nice approach. I like that, really. So then we have our Claude module that basically does its thing. Then we get a response, and here I'm combining the text again, but this time I'm preparing it to reformat the response into a JSON-friendly format. So yeah, my prompt looks like so. Please reformat the following text into a valid JSON object. Your response should be strictly a JSON payload and nothing more, yada, yada, yada. I'm also giving it an example, so summary, then reformatted text. And the text to reformat is the summary that you fetch from your input. Then finally, I'm using GPT-4 to reformat the text. My instruction comes from the combined text module, and my prompt, basically, it's the response that I get from Claude. Finally, I have an API call that I make to Make. And yes, it's a post call. Then the URL that I have, basically, it's my part 2 webhook, which is over here. So you just basically fetch it from Make, just copy it, and paste it in. In this case, I'm adding some variables to the call. So begin with a question mark and then ATID, Airtable ID equals my ATID field, which is over here. Another input that I'm slipstreaming into the whole thing. And finally, I also get my summary. Now, this is a little bit important. So in the body, just make sure that you add the summary from GPT-4, like that variable, into the body. Once that's done, we also get the response and we just output and close the scenario. And that's that. Now, in terms of make, once make receives the payload, and it looks like so, ATID, we're just passing the ATID that we got from the beginning, because here, if you remember, we're passing that through. ATID, you see how that is right here? I'm passing that for later. And the value that we get from make, it's also here. Sorry, not from make, from Respell, from ChatGPT 4, basically gets added to that summary, and we can see it here in the payload of the webhook. Then the next thing that I'm doing, I'm basically parsing that JSON. If you don't know what this is, basically if you get a payload like this, you see how it's like JSON formatted and it's a little bit weird. You need to parse it, you need to strip that down to its basic form. And to do that, just use parse JSON from make. All you have to do is there's like 2 steps to this. Select all of this text, copy it, Control-C or Command-V, or if you're on a Mac. Then go to add. I mean, I've done this already, but I'm just going to show you how to do this anyway. So add, just give your data structure a name, generate, paste this in. As you've copied it, you see it's JSON formatted, generate, and press save. I've already done it, but if you haven't, this is how to do it. So I'm just going to close this for now. Map your value from module number 1, press OK. Then you can finally update your Airtable record. So we map the ATID from our trigger, like so, and we also map the summary now that it is completely stripped of all JSON formatting. And you see how different that looks immediately compared to the original. And we map that into our Respell summary field in Airtable, which is this one. And that's basically it. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. This was another one of our Respell demos. I will continue using Respell. I think they've got a lot of potential in what they're building. Do I think it's going to replace Make anytime soon? No, but it's definitely filling in that void that especially Make seems to, I mean, they must have something coming up in terms of AI. Zapier has already done a few interesting things where you can build a scenario using just description. But yeah, they are definitely filling up an interesting void that's there right now with Make. What do you think? Do you think you're going to be using Respell in your workflows? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, that's it from me for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Thanks.